If you are already here, that means you have gone through the bulk of the course. You've done everything you absolutely need to get done before relocating here to Germany, and you've figured out all of those culture shocks. You're making sure that you're not going to make any mistakes, and you're really ready for your new life here in Germany. But there is one thing that we haven't talked about, and this one thing is so important for your success here in Germany and really in any country. So I've put together this bonus workshop that I titled Feel at Home in Germany. Call it what you'd like. You can think that it's silly, but at the end of the day, once you finish this module and you've completed that bonus workshop, I promise you, you are going to thank yourself later for having done this. As silly as it might seem, we are really going to go through this workshop together, and I'm going to show you examples from what I actually was able to build up and recreate in order to make sure that I really felt at home here in Germany. So before we move on, make sure that you've downloaded that free PDF document that you can find right down here below and print that out, because you're going to be making a ton of notes here, and I promise, again, you are going to thank yourself for doing this. And that is because there are actually expat stages. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but when I actually figured this out, it was almost like this aha moment for me. I realized, aha, like this all makes sense. And this is why I was feeling the way I was feeling at this point in my time when I moved to Germany, and perhaps a couple months later. These stages go on throughout the years. If I'm able to show you this now, you're going to be able to spot these feelings coming on and be able to handle them a lot better than I once did, or perhaps somebody else might have. So these expat stages, they are unavoidable. They happen to all of us, and that's just the way it goes. And it is not just in Germany. I'm talking about everywhere, regardless of where you're moving, whether you're moving permanently or temporarily. These are the stages that you are going to go through. So stage one is, of course, you're making that big decision to actually move abroad. This is really exciting. It's really nerve-wracking, and of course, we all make that big decision. Stage two is being overwhelmed with the whole settling in paperwork process and what to do and how to do it. And most of you are going to be at this stage now since you are part of this program. That means that you've identified, yes, there is a lot of paperwork to getting started. There are a lot of rules and steps that you need to take in order to make sure that you're properly settled in here, and it can be overwhelming. So this entire program was built in order to basically combat this stage so that you don't feel as overwhelmed when you're getting started, and that you actually have that helping hand to walk you through everything step by step so that everything makes sense. However, you're still going to feel overwhelmed. It's natural. That's common instinct. That's what we feel, and there's no denying it. And then you move on to stage three, which is you're here, you're over that culture shock, you've settled in, but you still don't feel at home. This often leads to the fourth stage where you feel homesick. You've met a few friends, but they're not like your friends back home, that you met from childhood. You've found all these amazing things that you can do in the city, but they're just not the same as home. You miss your family, you miss your friends, you miss your bed at home. All of this is very normal, and all of us go through this at some point in time, whether that's after 2 weeks or after 2 years. I still feel this fourth stage of homesickness sometimes when I go back home to visit and then I come back here to Germany, or when I'm sick or sad for whatever reason. This stage always comes back. So that's when you move on to this stage 5. And once you've been here for a little while and you start to settle in and you start to get this routine, because yes, you had a routine back home, but you're going to have just as good of a routine here. And once you get into this rhythm and you start making more friends and you start learning about the city or the town that you're living in, it almost becomes yours, and you start becoming a local and becoming proud of the city or town you live in. And you almost start realizing, I'm becoming this spokesperson for the city that I live in because I love it so much. And hopefully you all go through this at some point where you feel like you need to stand up for the city you live in. I mean, you've chosen it for a reason, right? So there are clearly very big reasons why you chose to move here and why you should feel proud to be where you're living. And then there's a little bit more of a hurdle because you jump into the final stage, which is you either love it or you hate it. And if you realize, oh, I'm not this spokesperson and everything I thought about the city that would be amazing is not amazing and I was totally misled by coming here, you might end up hating it. Hopefully, most of the time, you are absolutely going to love it. And this is where most expats and internationals make that final decision to stay put in your new city or town or to go home. And it's okay what you choose. I mean, some people just weren't built for that international life and some people were. Some people are able to feel at home and some people just never find their way. That is okay. It happens to all of us, but I'm here. We're doing this workshop because I want you to love it and I want you to be able to give your new life a chance. So I don't want you going through all 6 stages in the first 1 or 2 months of you being here in Germany and then realizing you don't love it and that you want to go home. I want you to be able to give yourself this chance because you'll be much more thankful for having given yourself that chance if you can go through all of these stages and successfully settle in. There are ways to do this and there are ways to avoid actually just hating moving here because sometimes it's not the actual place, it's simply just these stages taking over your emotions and making you feel like you need to be back home for some reason. So, word of advice, please don't give up. Most people give up at stage 4 or stage 6. That's just how it works. So stage 4, as I mentioned, is when you get homesick and you just realize you can't do it anymore. Or stage 6 is when you realize you either love the city or you absolutely hate it and you decide to go home. So these are the 2 stages that I want you to be able to combat by doing this workshop with me today. There are so many ways you can avoid this and we are going to go through this today. So how about actually taking the time to make yourself feel at home? Usually people give up because they just don't give themselves the time or day to actually enjoy the place that they're living. You come here, you start learning German perhaps, you get right into that job, you don't even have a chance to travel or to see what's around you because you're just so busy. Of course you're not going to like the city. That's normal. You've not given yourself an opportunity to even fall in love with the city in the first place. So we are going to make sure that you actually make yourself at home here in Germany. So I'm going to help you right now. Make sure you have that workbook ready to go because you are going to be pausing this module and making some notes for yourself. Let's get started. So first things first, in your workbook, you will see that there is a section that you can write about all of the things that you love from back home. This is what I like to call the things I love list. And I still make these lists today, even after years and years of living in Germany, because sometimes it just helps me out to give myself a fresh and new perspective on the city that I'm living in. So what I want you to do is think about the things that you love to do when you're back home or perhaps when you're traveling. What makes you want to get up in the morning? What excites you? What did you do with your friends? What did you do after work perhaps? What did you do on the weekends? Think about this and start writing them down. You've got this section in the bonus workshop to do it, so print that out and jot it down now. Think about it. What did you do? All those little tiny things that made you feel at home or that made you feel happy and excited and warm and cozy. Write all of those down. If you're ready to pause it right now, go ahead and pause this module. If you need a little bit of a push, I am also going to go through this with you based on the things that I really love from back home. So, for example, mine would include going out for coffee with friends. And you can see this picture here. I'm holding a Tim Hortons ice cap. Tim Hortons is a very popular coffee chain back in Canada, and this is where I would meet up with my friends. We would all drive. In the winter, sometimes we'd sit in our cars, turn up the music, turn up the heat. Otherwise, we could go in, get a bowl of chili and a coffee or a cookie or a muffin, and we would do this on a weekly basis quite often. I really missed being able to do this. Sometimes I still miss it, and that's okay. I also really missed going swimming at the lake because in Canada, a lot of us live in the city, and then when we want to travel in Canada, it's so big that we don't have that opportunity to, just go from Toronto over to Vancouver for a weekend trip. That's just not what happens. So what a lot of us have are small cottages or summer houses on the lakes, which are a couple hours away from our home. And this is what my family has. has. And so what I've really missed is just going up for the weekend, spending a couple nights there and just going swimming with my friends and my family. I really, really did miss that. I also missed hiking in the Canadian woods. If you've heard of Canada before, if you've heard of the fall time in Canada before, we have a beautiful Indian summer when the temperatures are still very much like summer, but the leaves are changing and the colors are bright red and orange and yellow, and I just miss this so much. And I also, when I'm feeling stressed and I need to just like relax and come down from the day, funny enough, I really like buying and selling secondhand items. I really like upcycling them too. So painting and doing crafts and all of this type of stuff is something that helps me be relaxed. I hope that that's inspired you a little bit, has got your wheels turning, is making you think exactly about what you missed and what you enjoyed doing with friends and family back home, and write all of those down. So pause the module here if you haven't yet and get those notes done. By now, you should have completed that list, so you should be ready to move on with me. And that is moving forward to this feel-good bucket list. What I want you to do is go down your list one by one from all of those points that you just made and do a little bit of Google research in order to find alternatives to those favorite things that you had back at home so that you can make new plans and exciting plans here in Germany. This is really going to take quite a bit of elbow grease because you might actually have to do some of this research in German. Use Google Translate, take the time to do this. I don't care how busy you are with work. If your children are screaming in your ear, put in some headphones, do this research, because if you don't, you are not going to know about all of the amazing experiences that you can have in your new life here in Germany if you don't do this research. You can't rely on other people to constantly tell you, oh, you need to check out this and this and this. You have to do this research for yourself sometimes in order to find exactly the things that suit your lifestyle. When I first came here to Düsseldorf, everybody told me to go check out the art museums and the amazing shopping district. And I hate shopping, and I'm really not very keen on art either, or museums. So for me, I first came here and was just like, I don't like it here. But when I gave myself the time to go through and create this feel-good bucket list for myself, well, then I was really, really thankful, and I really enjoyed the city a lot more. So let me show you what I mean before you go ahead and do all of those translations into your new life, just so that you get a better idea as to what I mean. So remember when I told you that I really loved going to Tim Hortons, having an ice cap or a coffee with my friends, and just chit-chatting? Well, what I did is I went over to Google and I did some intense research. I figured out exactly where I was going to be living and where I could go in order to do something similar. So Covent Garden, it's actually a British coffee shop right around the corner from me. I didn't know this for a while. It took me a long time to really figure it out, but 200 meters down the road from me is this beautiful coffee shop where everybody speaks English. And so for me, this was really home. Like, this was just an amazing thing to have so close to me. I also found Café Piraten, which was down the road, that I really, really loved. They had free Wi-Fi, much like they did at Tim Hortons. Get some work done and meet up with new friends. In order to make those new friends, I hopped on to meetup.com, and of course, Facebook groups really helped me as well. I found pretty much all of my friends here in Düsseldorf over on Facebook. And then when we talked about being up at my cottage and being able to swim with my family and friends, living back home, I actually lived in a city that had pretty much no nature. I mean, we had the Lake Ontario, but there wasn't very much nature at all. So I couldn't just go in the afternoon and go swimming. But here, close to Düsseldorf, I was able to find Unterbacher See, See means lake, Elbsee, Kastsee, and I was able to do so many day trips to different lakes around the area that are just within like 30 to 45 minutes drive. So I found so many other alternatives to swimming at my cottage, and it's really exciting because you're also getting to see new things around the city. My third point was that I love hiking in the Canadian woods. I first came to Düsseldorf and thought, what am I going to do? There are no mountains around here. There are no opportunities for hiking, but there really were. And you can actually use public public transport to get to these places. And I found out about all the amazing hiking opportunities when I downloaded the Komoot app. And if you haven't heard of it and you like to hike or cycle, download it because it's a free app that is basically like Google Maps, but allows you to find the best hiking routes based on how long you want to hike, your level of intensity, and how easily accessible it is. So this was really, really nice. And hiking, around not just Düsseldorf, but the whole of Germany is incredible. And close to Düsseldorf, I had Wuppertal and the Neanderthal Valley. And both of these are wonderful, wonderful places to hike. If you can do this and really translate the things that you love and build that into your new life here in Germany and give it a chance, you might actually find things that you really, really love. I say give it a chance because if you don't give it a chance and you just think in your mind constantly, well, back home is better, it's not going to change for you. You're just going to miss home so much. So as hard as it is when you're feeling lonely and nothing is better than home, I know that, I understand that. Being able to do this and being able to come up with some ideas as to why these new ideas and these new opportunities might be better than back home will really, really help you settle in properly and forget that you miss being home so much. This might also help you come up with some really new, exciting hobbies and allow you to learn some new things and to see new places and to meet new people. This is the third component to this workshop where you really need to force yourself to figure out why exactly might this be better than back home. Because really, we love back home and we are proud of where we come from, and we would always likely stand up for where we come from and where we grew up, which means you're comparing your new city to your old life, and that's just not comparable. I do know that and I do understand that, but you are going to have to figure out what makes these new opportunities better in order for you to have some sort of respect and understanding and openness to give them a chance. So here's mine. Coffee dates. Again, I'm meeting new friends. Yes, I miss my old friends, but it's an opportunity to meet new people, which is really cool. It's also an opportunity to make new conversations because you're not talking about all the old things that you were talking about with your old friends. Learning new things, having new conversations, and even being able to explore new places. Yes, it was always nice to go to Tim Hortons, but nowadays I constantly push myself to go to new coffee shops and to new cafes, finding even better cafes than the ones that I originally found, which were nice and close to home. For my lake visits, I started realizing, this is a much, much shorter drive than it took me to get to my cottage. I can actually just take the tram a few stops and get to some beautiful lakes just outside of the city where I could have never done that when I lived back in Canada. And of course, I'm getting new scenery, so I'm not seeing the same thing every time like I was back at my cottage. I'm getting to learn about all these awesome new and exciting places. Why might hiking for me be better in Germany and in Düsseldorf versus back in Canada? Well, it's accessible by transit here, as I mentioned, and back in Canada, transit is just not an option when you live in the outskirts of the city. So I always had to have a car or wait for somebody to pick me up in a car, which could be really stressful and really annoying in the planning process. I'm also able to see different landscapes here. So maybe I don't have those beautiful fall colors like I did in Canada, but sometimes I find more mountainous regions here. There's a lot more animals on the paths I find here in Germany, and there's just so many beautiful things that I have been able to see and experience going hiking here in Germany. It also allows me to have a better sense of direction here in Germany. So it's allowed me to feel more at home and to be more comfortable in the space that I'm in. So these are all reasons why my new opportunities here in Düsseldorf and here in Germany are better than back home. And yes, some days I'm just like, you know what? I don't even care. I just want to be back at my cottage swimming in the lake that I know best. But you have to do this. You have to see the benefits before you can go and think about all of the negatives. So do this, write it down, pause this module, and build up that list of potential new opportunities for you to be able to actually make the best out of this experience. So it's your turn now. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message if you like. I am here for you. And although I am not a therapist, this is something, again, that I continue to go back to time and time again to reiterate to myself why I love living in Germany. Sometimes you're gonna hit that day where you're just like, I hate it here, somebody was so mean to me and I just don't want to stay anymore. That's okay, that's normal. And then I go back to this workshop and I do it again for myself with new things. If all else fails, I open up Google Maps and I see, okay, where haven't I visited yet before? Because exploring around Germany is one of the things that is just It's such an incredible opportunity for so many people, and there's just never a dull moment. There is always something amazing here to see in Germany. And if you need help, I have a list of amazing day trips and amazing weekend trips that you can do here in Germany. So take the time to do this, please, 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 and message me with whatever questions you have. I will also open up the comments section in this module so you can write down and share some of your inspiration and some of your ideas that you found out, so that other people can also check out your comments and see what they might enjoy here in Germany.